Hey, my love. Welcome to your weekly forecast for the week of May 4th to the 11th, 2025. This week is all about getting back on track and grounding into our choices and plans and moving steadily forward with them. The highlight of the week is Mercury moving into Taurus, which brings some well-needed Earth energy to the sky. Before it moves into Taurus, though, Mercury will conjoin Chiron and Aries, which brings a healing opportunity and a chance to see ourselves and our story in a whole new way. Let's get into the highlights of the week. We start the week on Sunday with Pluto's station retrograde in Aquarius, which breaks up our stretch of all planets direct that we've been in since April 12th. So all planets direct is now over, but Pluto is a slow-moving outer planet that doesn't really affect our mood or our daily actions so much, and so its retrograde isn't going to be palpable in a way that Mercury or Venus retrograde is. Now, it's not until July that we move into our next really retrograde high season, which delivers Neptune, Saturn, and Mercury retrograde. So really, until then, now until July, we're more or less moving forward with our plans, and we can expect a lot less backtracking and disruptions than the first 3 months of the year. Now on Tuesday, Mercury will conjoin Chiron in the final degrees of Aries, and we can reach some understanding around a certain struggle or sensitivity. A personal challenge can become less complicated and more clear, or more out in the open. This conjunction could bring perspective on the healing or spiritual growth that has occurred over the last few months, or even over the last 8 years since Chiron entered Aries back in 2018. We can see things in a new way and connect with solutions on Tuesday. Now moving forward into Saturday, Mercury will enter Taurus until May 25th. And Mercury in grounded, methodical Taurus is all about slow and steady progress. It's about moving one step at a time and not complicating things or rushing or changing things for no reason. Taurus teaches us about keeping it simple and being patient and doing what works and doing it right. So we can use this Mercury and Taurus transit for getting into routines, getting back into our body, and maybe getting resensitized to how we feel and what we need. And it can be good for simplifying daunting tasks by breaking them down into small, manageable steps. It can be a period of streamlined productivity, because just as much as Taurus is leisurely and doesn't want to rush, it's Venusian, it loves rewards and treats, it's also dedicated and very hardworking. Now, toward the end of the month, looking forward, Mercury will conjoin Uranus in Taurus, and so this transit does have a potentially shocking grand finale, but for the most part, the month of May is, for the most part, stabilizing, and we're certainly ready for some stability. Now, next week, we have our full moon in Scorpio. Mercury will square off with Pluto, the Sun will conjoin Uranus, and Mercury will square Mars. Now, before we get into our tarot reading for the week ahead, an update. From this week on, in addition to your weekly Astro Highlights forecast here on the podcast, I'll also be dropping a lunar transit forecast for the week ahead inside Lunar Rights Society, formerly known as Moon Camp. Moon Camp is now Lunar Rights Society, and this monthly subscription service and online community is where you can get your exclusive moon forecast for the week ahead, as well as audio transmissions for each major moon phase and live new moon rituals. So if you love the podcast and you want even more astro soup for the soul to guide your week, I invite you to join us inside. So the link for full details to Lunar Rights Society is in the show notes. And now let's get into our tarot reading for the week of May 4th to the 11th, 2025. And we'll see what the tarot has to say about this week this relatively quiet week in the stars. Mercury entering Taurus is really the main highlight, and it's one to look forward to after a whole lot of frenetic Mercury activity over the last few months. So we'll see what the tarot has to say about this week and how we can work with it. So we have the Queen of Pentacles, we have the Moon, and the Queen of Cups. I think there can be some clarity reached this week around something that has not been clear in the past. With the Moon, this shows us moving through a period of uncertainty, maybe a bit of a dark night of the soul, where we can't see what's next. We can only see one step ahead of us, and we have to kind of walk the path as if by the light of the moon. And this is challenging because our imagination can run wild when we're in the energy of the moon. The moon reminds us of, where our brains go in the dark. When there's a whole lot of uncertainties, a whole lot of potential, it can feel really overwhelming. And the mind has a lot of feedback when we feel ungrounded, uncertain about our path. And so if you've been feeling that way after these last 3 months, which have been very destabilizing, this week can bring some grounding. With the Queen of Pentacles, such an energy of grounding and focus and intentionality and being clear on, our intentions and what we really want to make happen. I think there could be some clarity arriving this week around our intentions and what it means to really embody our truth and kind of like live out our intentions. And with the Queen of Cups, a similar energy to the Queen of Pentacles in that they both have to do with receptivity as well as leadership, but not so much about asserting ourselves and taking action and, charging forward. The Queens are more receptive. They're more in their yin, if you like. And with the Queen of Cups, I feel like we could potentially see the value of that period of uncertainty in the past where we were moving through a dark night of the soul. The Queen of Cups is watery, much like the moon is, and so emotionally intelligent. That's one thing I always think about with the Queen of Cups. So psychic and so deeply powerful, like the high priestess. And so we could maybe look back on the past and understand the real value and the gifts and the treasure that have come out of a period of a lot of fear, maybe. This week says keep going and hold yourself in the present moment. Know that you are always the queen, always the king, always the regal ruler, the leader of your life, always, even in times of uncertainty. Your throne is in the present moment. Your present moment is always, one that you can really be confident in. Like that's where confidence lives. That's where our power lives, in the present moment. So we want to be present with each step that we take and know that it's darkest before the dawn. We are moving forward toward the sun. And this week says keep going. Focus forward. Don't spiral into the dark. Don't go into 9 of Swords territory, right? That's not what we want to do. When we're in the energy of the moon, we want to understand the magic of the uncertain times. What if we never went through uncertainty? What if we never moved through periods that tested us? We wouldn't grow. So how have you been growing this year? And what would it look and feel like to really own that this month? On the root of the deck, we have Temperance. Yeah. Temperance is all about not clinging to labels, not clinging to anything, really. The Temperance card warns us of the potential danger, maybe kind of an intense word, of thinking in a black and white way, of rushing to conclusions too quickly and saying, I am this, when we really have to allow our next expression to come into fruition. The Temperance card is so much about becoming and alchemy. It's like we're taking two things, two energies, two priorities, the past and who we're becoming. We're taking two seemingly conflicting things and creating something entirely new. We can't force things in the energy of Temperance. We can be sure that we are changing and evolving and becoming even more full and whole in ourselves and moving towards our fullest expression and like aligning with our higher self truth and our soul's right path. All of that good shit is happening. But there's a risk, to wrap our heads around things too soon. Sometimes we just have to let things become. Sometimes we have to let it all come out in the wash. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that we can't still be the strong, capable leader of our life. We don't always need to have the answers. And it's really wise, maybe, to acknowledge that you don't have answers. And in that acceptance, maybe perspective can come. That is what I have for you this week, my love. I hope your week is grounding and restorative and filled with blessings and magic. Thank you for listening. Until next time.